I was 24 the summer this happened. I had just graduated, was back in my hometown in Oregon, and picking up odd jobs, pet sitting, babysitting, house cleaning, anything to keep a little money flowing. One day, I got a call from a man named Richard. He said he needed someone to stay at his house for a week to watch his Labrador, Buddy. I'd done dog sitting before, but what struck me was his request that I stay overnight. He explained Buddy was anxious and did better with someone in the house. The money he offered was a little more than I usually got, so I agreed. Richard seemed normal enough when we met. Late 40s, tall, glasses, the kind of man you'd see at the grocery store and never think twice about. His house was tucked at the edge of town, surrounded by woods. Inside it was clean but dated beige carpets, floral curtains, a faint smell of air freshener that made me think of my grandmother's house. He showed me the ropes, Buddy's food schedule, the spare key hidden under a flower pot, what I could eat from the fridge. Then he told me I could stay in the guest bedroom on the first floor. The first 2 nights were uneventful. Buddy and I went for walks. I watched some TV, scrolled on my phone, then fell asleep with him, curled up at the foot of the bed. Everything seemed fine, but the third night everything changed. I was sitting on the bed, scrolling through my phone when my eyes wandered across the room. On the dresser was a small digital alarm clock. At first, I didn't think much of it, but something about it bothered me. The rest of the room felt frozen in 2003, yet this clock was sleek, modern, with bright blue LED numbers. The longer I looked at it, the stranger it felt. I leaned closer. Above the glowing numbers was a tiny black circle, perfectly round. It didn't look like a button. It looked like a lens. My stomach dropped. I'd heard stories about hidden cameras disguised as clocks, but seeing one in front of me, pointed directly at the bed where I slept, made my skin crawl. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected, and faintly humming, like something electronic inside was running. My heart raced. That's when Buddy suddenly lifted his head and started whining. His ears perked toward the hallway. Then, from somewhere deeper in the house, I heard it. A door closing, the front door, something inside. I froze. Richard wasn't supposed to be back until Sunday. It was only Wednesday. My pulse thundered in my ears as I heard slow, deliberate footsteps on the carpeted hallway, coming closer. I set the clock back down, rushed to the door, and locked it just as the steps stopped outside. Then came Richard's voice, calm, almost casual. "Emily, open the door. I left something in there. I just need to grab it." I couldn't speak. I stood there, trembling. After a pause, his tone shifted. He said the clock wasn't a camera, it was a motion sensor for the dog. He claimed he didn't mention it because he didn't want to freak me out, but I knew that was a lie. When I didn't respond, he knocked, then pounded. His calm voice snapped, replaced by anger. He shouted that if I didn't open up, he'd use the spare key. He threatened to call the police and claim I had broken into his home. Buddy barked and scratched frantically at the door, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen between terror and disbelief. Finally, instinct took over. I turned to the window. It was low enough to climb through. My shaking hands fumbled with the latch until it finally gave. I shoved it open, crawled out, and dropped onto the grass. I didn't look back. I sprinted across the yard and down the long gravel driveway. My phone was in my pocket, and I called my mom, barely able to speak through the panic. I told her to come get me immediately. By the time she pulled up, I was crouched behind a cluster of mailboxes, staring down the road, terrified that Richard would appear. I never went back to that house. I never got my pay. My lawyer told me without physical proof, like taking the clock or recording it, there wasn't much I could do. Richard could just claim it was a sensor. Weeks passed, but I couldn't sleep properly. I started checking every clock, every smoke detector, every picture frame in my own apartment. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, certain I could feel a lens staring at me from the darkness. And I keep thinking about that night, the sound of the door closing inside the house, which means Richard might not have just returned early. He may have been there all along, watching. I was 21 the summer I took a trip with my college friends. We had just finished finals and wanted a break before starting internships. Instead of going to a crowded beach, we decided to rent a cabin in Vermont, secluded, cheap, and surrounded by endless forest. The listing on the rental site looked perfect. A 2-story cabin with 3 bedrooms, a big porch, and trails nearby. The reviews were sparse, but all of them said the same thing. Quiet place, great for a getaway. Nothing more. We arrived in the late afternoon. The cabin was rustic, but charming wooden walls, old furniture, the faint smell of pine. The owner had left a note on the counter, welcoming us, with the Wi-Fi password scribbled at the bottom. Everything seemed normal, but as we unpacked, something caught my eye. In the hallway near the stairs, there was a door with a heavy padlock on it. Unlike the other doors, which were light wood with brass knobs, this one was reinforced, dark, and scratched near the handle. "What do you think's in there?" my friend Lisa asked, dropping her bag beside me. "Probably just storage," I said. But even then, the lock unsettled me. That night, after some drinks and card games, we all went to bed. I was half asleep when I heard faint thuds coming from below us. At first I thought it was Lisa, or my other friend James, sneaking into the kitchen. But then I realized the sound wasn't coming from upstairs. It was coming from beneath. The floorboards, the locked door. I lay there, holding my breath, listening. A dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled. Then 3 slow knocks, knock, 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 right under my room, heart, hammering. "Hello," I whispered, instantly regretting it. The knocks stopped. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I tried to bring it up casually. "Did either of you hear anything weird last night?" Lisa shook her head. James laughed. "It's an old cabin, man. Wood creaks. Animals. Get under the house. Relax." I wanted to believe him. But later, when we were making breakfast, Lisa opened the fridge and froze. "Did either of you drink this?" she asked, holding up a carton of milk. It was half empty. We hadn't even opened it yet. We brushed it off as the owner forgetting to throw things out. Still, a sense of unease settled over me. That night, it escalated. Around 2 a.m., I woke again to noises from the basement. This time, it wasn't just dragging or knocking. It was breathing. A low, rasping inhale and exhale. So faint I thought I was imagining it. I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the hallway. The locked door stood there, silent, the padlock glinting in the dim light. Then dash, bang. Something slammed against the other side so hard the floor vibrated. I stumbled back, nearly screaming. "Did you hear that?" Lisa's voice whispered behind me. She was standing at her door, pale, eyes wide. James came out a moment later, annoyed, until another bang shook the doorframe. All of us were silent. "Now," Lisa clutched my arm. "We need to leave, right now." But James shook his head. "It's probably some wild animal stuck under there. The owner locked it up for a reason. We're fine." He went back to his room. Lisa and I stayed up in the living room, too scared to sleep. At one point, I thought I heard whispering muffled, coming through the vents. Not words, just tones, as though 2 people were murmuring to each other by dawn. It stopped. We confronted the owner over the phone later that morning. I tried to sound calm. "Hey, we were wondering about that locked door downstairs. We've been hearing noises. Is something stored down there?" A long pause. Then he said, flatly, "The basement is off limits. Do not open it. Stay out, and you'll be fine." And then he hung up. That should have been the point we packed and left. But James insisted we'd be fine for the last 2 nights. He said he didn't want to waste money on another hotel. Against my gut feeling, we stayed. The final night was the worst. Around 3 a.m., I woke to Buddy the Labrador that had come with the cabin barking wildly at the basement door. His fur was raised, teeth bared. The banging started again, louder than ever, shaking the frame. Then, slowly, the padlock began to rattle. Something was pulling at it from the other side. Lisa screamed, and James finally bolted from his room. Without thinking, I grabbed the closest thing, a fire poker, from the fireplace, and we all backed toward the front door. The rattling grew more violent, then it stopped. Silence. We stood frozen, waiting, hoping it was over, and then, from the other side of the door, came a voice. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. "Let me out." Low, hoarse, almost human, but not quite. The way it stretched the words made my skin crawl. "Please, let me out," Lisa sobbed. James whispered, "Nope, nope, we're leaving." We grabbed our bags, didn't even pack properly, and sprinted to the car. I didn't look back until we were halfway down the gravel road. From that distance, I saw the cabin, dark and still except for one thing. The basement door, wide open. We never reported it. We didn't even leave a review. To this day, none of us can explain what was down there, or why the owner warned us away. But I know this much. Something was locked in that basement, and whatever it was, it wanted out. I was 19 when it happened. It's been years, but I still can't tell this story without shivering. My best friend, Daniel, had an obsession with abandoned places. He'd drag me to crumbling factories, boarded up houses, even old mines. He loved the adrenaline, the history, the feeling of walking through a forgotten world. One summer evening, he told me about an abandoned sanatorium on the outskirts of Colorado Springs. "It's been closed for decades," he said, eyes gleaming with excitement. "People say it's haunted. Perfect place to explore." I should have said no, but Daniel had that kind of energy that pulled you in. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We went at dusk, armed with flashlights, a backpack of snacks, and Daniel's camera. The sanatorium loomed over the hillside, massive and skeletal. The windows were shattered. Ivy crawled up the stone walls, and the rusted front gate hung open like a warning. Inside, the air was damp and stale, carrying a faint metallic smell like old blood. The long hallways were lined with peeling paint and faded signs, wards, X-ray, isolation. Our footsteps echoed in the silence. Daniel filmed everything, narrating like he was hosting a ghost hunting show. I tried to laugh along, but my chest felt tight. Something about the place felt wrong. We passed rooms filled with rusted bed frames, overturned wheelchairs, and walls scratched with markings I couldn't quite make out. One door had the word "forget" carved into it, over and over again. As we went deeper, the air grew colder. That's when Daniel noticed a staircase leading down, basement level. He grinned. This is where they kept the really bad cases. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, but I followed him down. The basement was darker, the walls covered in black mold. Our flashlights barely cut through the gloom. We found a long corridor lined with heavy steel doors like cells. Most were closed, but one stood slightly ajar. Daniel pushed it open, and we stepped inside. The room was small, just a bed bolted to the floor, leather straps dangling from it, and chains fixed into the wall. I felt sick. "That's messed up," Daniel whispered, crouching to film. His flashlight caught something on the wall scratches, deep grooves that spelled out words. "I am still here." I backed out, heart racing. "Daniel, let's go." Seriously. But he ignored me, too busy recording. That's when the door slammed shut. The sound was deafening. I spun around, yanking at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. From inside, I heard Daniel shouting, pounding on the door. "Open it. Don't mess around," he yelled. "I'm not," I screamed back, pulling with all my strength. Then I froze, because behind Daniel's voice, I heard something else, a whisper, low guttural, sliding through the crack in the door. It wasn't English. The words twisted unnaturally, like a recording played backward, and Daniel stopped yelling. Silence. My stomach dropped. I kicked and pulled at the door until finally it creaked open. The room was empty. No Daniel. His flashlight lay on the floor, flickering. His camera was still recording, pointed at the bed, but Daniel was gone. I stumbled into the hall, screaming his name, running from door to door. My own voice echoed back at me. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard footsteps, slow dragging. I chased the sound, turning corner after corner, until I realized something terrifying. The building had changed. The halls no longer looked abandoned. The walls were white, the floors polished, fluorescent lights buzzing above me. Somewhere, a patient coughed. A gurney squeaked. Voices murmured behind closed doors. I wasn't in a ruin anymore. I was in the sanatorium, as it once was, live, full of suffering. And Daniel was nowhere. I bolted back the way I came, but the halls twisted unnaturally, looping in ways that didn't make sense. My flashlight sputtered, and the illusion flickered, walls bleeding back through the pristine ones. For a second, I saw both at once, the hospital alive and dead, overlapping. Then the whispers returned, surrounding me. I ran. Finally, I found the staircase and scrambled up, bursting through the main floor. The building was ruined again, just as we'd found it. I sprinted for the exit, never looking back. Outside, the sky had gone black. My car sat at the edge of the lot, untouched. I jumped in, locked the doors, and waited until sunrise before daring to drive away. Daniel never came out. The police searched the sanatorium, but they found nothing. No footprints, no camera, no trace of him. When I told them the story, they didn't believe me. His parents still ask me what really happened, and I have no answer. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard, and sometimes, late at night, I play back Daniel's last recording, the one from his camera I grabbed before fleeing. At first, it's just static in his nervous laughter. Then the door slams, his voice panics, and finally, a whisper, low, drawn out, too close to the mic. 2 words, in English this time. Stay here. I haven't gone near an abandoned building since, but every so often, I dream of that sanatorium. In the dream, I'm walking its halls again, searching, door after door, and somewhere, faintly, I hear Daniel's voice, calling my name.